Welcome to the Story Lab and welcome to part 2 of our project on adapting the Silmarillion. Everybody wants more Tolkien stories, don't they? Well, we still have the entire Silmarillion to adapt, and that book not only gives us the possibilities for several movies, but also for more. In fact, we have already come up with 5 movies that tell some of the greatest stories of the Silmarillion as a continuous saga. But now, we want to expand on that even further and do a whole Silmarillion cinematic universe. Ready? Let's go! Before we start planning though, an important comment: since Marvel's success, seemingly every movie studio wanted a cinematic universe just to have one of their own, but that is not why we're talking about it here. The Silmarillion, being for the most part the history or legends of an entire world, contains many stories that wouldn't ideally translate to connected movies. So, a solution would be to add series and spin-offs to cover these stories. Naturally, these spin-offs and series would need to fit into the overall narrative while still working each on their own. That is why we talk about a cinematic universe here for the Silmarillion. What stories do we still have? In part 1 of this project, we already covered some great stories in the movies. You can see what still remains. As noted last time as well, Turin's story is too big for one movie, especially with the whole backstory. But with its strong characters, intrigues, power struggles, fight scenes etc., this story might be perfect for a Game of Thrones-like show. Thus, Turin's story shall become a TV series. Meanwhile, the entire backstory of Fina and the Noldus exile should fit into one movie, but ideally, not all the characters would have to be introduced in that one movie alone. It would thus work best as a prequel, possibly with a companion series. Let's go to the board and work all of this out. We already have 5 movies out of the great stories from part 1. Now let's do the following. A TV series covering Turin's story in detail. It is hinted at in movie 3, but not fully explored. A prequel movie covering Fina's life, the death of the trees etc. And a miniseries showcasing certain events during the legends and introducing us to characters for the prequel movie. We can also put all of those productions into a timeline, if anyone wanted to actually produce them. We could start in year 1 with bringing out the Beren and Luthien movie, kickstarting the cinematic universe. Then in year 2 would follow the Hurin and Huanunnaith Arno Eddadad movie. The next story after that would be the Turin story, so in year 3 we would not have the next movie, but instead both the first season of the Turin story and the first season of the miniseries about the larger world that sets up the Fina prequel. This will be called Stories of the Elves, Chapter 1 of the Valar and the Elves. In year 4 we would then have the prequel movie, called Father of the Silmarils, while at the same time Turin-Turambar continues with its second and final season. Thus, we would timeline-wise have reached movie 3 Thingol and the Norglemir in year 5. Alongside it could run Stories of the Elves Chapter 2, the Noldor in Beleriand. In year 6 would follow Tuatha and the Fall of Gondolin alongside Stories of the Elves Chapter 3, Stories from Gondolin and Doriath. Finally, we would top it all off with the Eärendil movie in year 7. Okay, that is quite a lot of story material to come up with. Unfortunately, writing this absolutely perfectly will be difficult. The printers in the lab were actually overheating from all the paper they had to produce. Thus, for this project let's just look at the story ideas just as they happen to come to mind. Turin-Turambar Season 1 will have 15 episodes that could go as follows. Episode 1, Grown-up Turin tells us how he got to Doriath as a boy. Episode 2, Grown-up Turin tells us how he met his friend Beleg. Episode 3, Beleg and Turin wander and hear of the orcs in the north. They go and free many people. 4, Beleg and Turin continue fighting and Turin tells stories about his mother and sister that he heard from messengers. 5, Turin returns to Doriath and is laughed at. The elf who laughed at him is killed. 6, Turin flees to the woods and is found by bandits. Thingol forgives Turin. 7, Turin lives as a bandit and becomes their leader. Beleg returns to Doriath and leaves again in search of Turin. 8. Beleg finds the bandits and Turin refuses to return with him. 9. Beleg returns and leaves once more. Turin meets a Puckelman. 10. Turin meets Mim and they come to his house on the Amorn roof. 11. It is winter and Turin wants to save his men. Beleg arrives and tells him how Thingol gave him the black sword. 12. Turin and Beleg fight orcs and Mim betrays them. 13. Amorn Ruth is attacked and Turin is caught. 14. Beleg chases after Turin and meets Gwynder. Gwynder tells his story. 15. Showdown with the orcs. Turin accidentally kills Beleg and Gwynder offers to take him to Nargothrond. Then we will have the second season with also 15 episodes that could be the following. Season 2, Episode 1, Gwynder and Turin make their way to Nargothrond and are introduced to Orodreth. Episode 2, Turin meets Finduilas and learns of Gwynder's previous engagement with her. Episode 3, Turin convinces Orodreth to take up the fight again and leads a first victory against the orcs with the black sword. 4. Turin continues fighting and Finduilas learns his true name. Morwen and Ninor are introduced. 5. Morwen and Ninor flee to Doriath. Turin makes plans for the bridge. 6. Turin builds the bridge. Finduilas falls in love with him and Glorung is introduced. 7. Orodreth is visited by the messengers and the dragon approaches. Morwen and Ninor hear of it and prepare to go to Nargothrond. 8. The dragon attacks and a big battle occurs. Mablung and his troops get separated. 9. The dragon enchants both Turin and Ninor is left naked in the woods. 10. Turin goes to Doloming and kills Brodda. 11. Turin comes to Harletha's folk and everyone is introduced. 12. Turin and Ninor fall in love. There is much suspicion. 13. The dragon leaves and Turin goes to face him. 14. The people of Harletha's folk witness the great battle between Turin and the dragon. 15. Ninor kills herself, Turin too. Mablung creates the tomb for them and Morgoth laughs on his throne. Okay, so that was the Turin series. Let's now have a look at the prequel movie, Fina, Father of the Silmarils. Intro, movie begins with Fina being enchanted by Galadriel but rejected. Fina gets the idea to make the Silmarils and does so. Act 1, a mysterious friend shows up and does really nice, but really is Morgoth and manipulates everyone into hating each other. Act 2, Melka is discovered and chased away, but immediately returns with Ungoliant killing the trees. Fina tells the Noldor to walk away. Act 3, the Noldor walk away and take the ships. We see the entire exile to the point where Fina dies, and Fingolfin arrives via the ice. Now we're only missing the 3 seasons of miniseries. Those could go like this. Stories of the Elves Chapter 1 of the Valar and Elves introduces some characters for the Fina movie and tells some of the minor stories of before the exile of the Noldor begins. 1. Manwë and Ulmo create reign together. Valinor is introduced. 2. All creates the dwarfs. 3. Orone finds the elves and convinces the Valar to attack Melka. 4. Attack on Melka happens. 5. The elves wander out. Thingol meets Melian. 6. Everyone arrives at their destinations. 7. Fina is born and Finwë's first wife dies. 8. All teaches the sons of Finwë how to do smithing and Fina is very adept in doing so. In Season 2, or rather Chapter 2, of the Noldor in Beleriand, we would make a time jump beyond the prequel movie and see the establishment of places from the movie and a bit more backstory. Especially we get to see the dagger Agreleb, which was alluded to since movie 1. But let's go through the ideas in order. 1. The elves are in discontent because of the burning of the ships. Melka tricks Maedhros into capture. 2. Fingon saves Maedhros and the elves make up. 3. Thingol and Melian build Menegroth and Luthien is born. 4. Finrod finds the first men. 5. Turgon leaves Nevrist for Gondolin. 6. Finrod builds Nargothrond. 7. Angrod and the human lady have their famous dialogue. 8. The dagger Bragalak occurs and Fingolfin fights Melkor in a duel. The third season would play out concurrently to the movie saga with the following stories. 1. Dior marries, and the sons of Fina send a messenger demanding the Silmaril back. They do not really want to act though. 2. Turgon oversees Maeglin building the seventh gate and tells how his wife died on the ice. 3. Maeglin's backstory. 4. Dior reads up on the history of Thingol's kingdom and discovers the tale of the first battle, where the king of the Green Elves was killed. 5. Dior is still reading up on Thingol and we see Thingol learning of the killing of the Telerian man. 6. Dior goes to see Beren and Lúthien's island. He finds no trace of them. Fina's sons still debate attacking him soon. 7. Gondolin sends out messengers to the sea, but Voronway gets lost in Nan Thathrin. 8. Voronway arrives at sea and they begin their journey. Idril is very worried and first discusses a plan for a tunnel with a famous engineer. As you can see, each of these miniseries seasons will have 8 episodes. That would be quite short and probably work great both in a live action and an animated form. So, now we have an adaptation for the entire Silmarillion ready. It consists of 5 movies telling some of the great stories as a continuous saga, a Turin series with 2 seasons, a Stories of the Elves miniseries with 3 seasons, and a Fina prequel movie. With this, all of the stories from the Quenta Silmarillion are told, in one way or another, during this continuous Silmarillion cinematic universe. We for one, would very much like to see this produced. Please note that everything presented here is simply the results of an experiment. No part of this presentation is intended as a correction of an existing story or claims to be the real story. The selection or omission of any parts of the source material is not to be understood as commentary, positive or negative, on the original productions. These are simply thoughts and experiments based on existing material, and none of it could be created without the work of all those involved in creating the original works. As with any scientific result, you may utilize any of the story ideas that resulted from these experiments for your own experiments or production, while citing this experiment as its source. It is now closing time for our lab. Goodbye until next time.